Did Lamar really die in BMF Season 4, Episode 10? Or did the writers just trick us with a hidden clue? Because if you watch that last scene closely, there's something off. And it changes everything about Lamar's so-called ending. Lamar Silas is one of the most unforgettable characters in BMF. From the moment he was introduced, he felt different from any other villain on the show. He wasn't just another street rival. He was unpredictable, almost unstoppable, and every scene with him felt like it could explode at any second. The way he moved, the way he talked, even the way people reacted to him, Lamar always carried this energy of danger and chaos. And that's exactly why fans can't stop asking the question, did the show really just kill him off for good? To understand why that question matters, we need to go back through his story. Lamar wasn't only Meech and Terry's enemy, he was once a man with deep ties to Detroit's streets. He had history, connections, and a reputation that followed him everywhere. When he came back into the picture, fresh out of the psych ward, nobody was safe. He was unpredictable. He'd show moments of tenderness 1 second, like when he tried reconnecting with Monique or building a bond with Zoe, but in the next breath he'd explode into violence. That mix of charm and danger is what made him terrifying, and it's also what made him so compelling to watch. By Season 4, Lamar's story had already gone through so many twists. He had betrayed people, lost people, and survived situations. That should have been the end for him. Remember when everyone thought he was done after that bathroom fight? Or when he collapsed from his drug addiction, looking like he couldn't possibly get back up? Yet every time, he returned stronger, angrier, and more unpredictable. That's the thing about Lamar. Just when you think his story is finished, he finds a way back in. Episode 10 sets up what feels like the final showdown. Meech and Terry are moving their empire forward, but Lamar is still out there, unpredictable, and dangerous. His presence is like a shadow over their success. Every character knows it. The audience knows it. It feels like the story can't move on until Lamar is finally taken out of the picture. And so the episode builds toward that exact moment, the so-called end of Lamar. But here's the problem. The show has played this game before. We've been tricked into thinking Lamar is gone, only for him to rise up again. That's why when we see what happens in Episode 10, a lot of fans weren't fully convinced. Because Lamar isn't just any character you can quietly kill off. His presence is too big, too iconic, too central to the tension of BMF. If you look back at every major moment in the series, Lamar has always been at the heart of the conflict. Without him, the balance of power shifts too easily. With him, the tension never lets up. And that's where the Easter egg comes in. If the writers really wanted us to believe Lamar is gone, they would have shown it in a clear, undeniable way. But instead, the way his final scene plays out leaves room for doubt. It's the kind of scene that makes you replay it in your head, wondering, did we just witness his death? Or did the show slip in a clue that Lamar's story isn't over yet? That's why it's important to look at Lamar's journey as more than just a villain's arc. He represents chaos, the part of the street life that can't be controlled or predicted. Every time Meech and Terry think they've built something stable, Lamar crashes through it like a storm. And if you remove him too soon, that storm ends, and so does one of the show's most powerful sources of drama. So before we dive into the actual Easter egg, let's make one thing clear. Lamar's so-called death in Episode 10 isn't just another scene, it's a statement. Either the writers are finally closing the chapter on one of the most intense villains in TV history, or they're setting up his biggest comeback yet. And if you know Lamar's history, you know which option feels more believable. When we get to Lamar's final scene in Season 4, Episode 10, everything about it feels carefully crafted. It doesn't just happen suddenly. The show builds tension step by step, making us believe this is the end, but if you watch closely, the way it's filmed actually leaves the door wide open. Let's break it down. The scene starts with Lamar cornered. For the first time in a long time, he doesn't look like the hunter, he looks like the hunted. The camera angles tell us that right away. Normally, when Lamar is in control, the shots are from below, making him look larger than life. But here, the angles tilt down on him, making him seem small, almost trapped. It's a visual clue that his power is slipping. Then comes the confrontation. The dialogue is sharp, emotional, and heavy. There's no random street noise, no distractions. It's focused, almost like time slows down around Lamar. That silence in the background, it isn't just for drama. It's a signal that something more symbolic is happening. This isn't just a fight. It's a moment of transition, Asterisk now. Pay attention to the details. When the blows land, when the moment of violence comes, notice how the camera doesn't actually give us the full confirmation we expect. In most TV shows, when a major character is killed, the director makes it clear, close-up shots, blood, no room for doubt. But in Lamar's case, the scene cuts in a way that almost feels incomplete. We don't get the traditional confirmation. Instead, we get suggestion. It's like the show wants us to think he's dead, but without showing us. Asterisk, and then comes the most telling part, the music. As Lamar falls, instead of a triumphant or tragic score, the soundtrack feels off. It's haunting, almost unfinished. Usually, when a villain dies, the music either celebrates the victory or marks the end with a sad, heavy tone. But here, the music lingers, as if the story itself hasn't closed the door. That's one of the first signs that this ending might not be final. Asterisk, another key detail is the camera cut right after the fall. We don't see Lamar's body for long. The shot pulls away quickly, and then the focus shifts to Meech and Terry. This is strange, because, again, when a villain truly dies, directors often linger on the body. It's a way of giving the audience closure. But Lamar? We don't get that closure. Instead, we're pulled away, almost distracted. It's like the show is deliberately hiding something. Asterisk, even the reactions of the characters around him feel muted. Nobody says the definitive words. He's dead. Nobody checks for a pulse. Nobody confirms it. Think about how many times in other shows you've seen someone check a body just to remove all doubt. Here, the silence speaks louder than any line of dialogue. Asterisk, and that's what makes this scene so interesting. On the surface, it looks like Lamar has finally reached his end. But the more you study it, the more it feels like a setup, a trick. The writers and directors are playing with perspective, making us feel like we've seen the end, when in reality, all we've seen is a moment that could go either way. Asterisk, this is the brilliance of BMF's storytelling. They know Lamar is a fan-favorite villain. They know people talk about him non-stop on social media, so why kill him in such an uncertain way? Unless, of course, they want people to debate it. Unless they want that conversation to carry on until the next season. Asterisk, so, the scene breakdown gives us two truths. 1. Lamar looks like he's been defeated, but 2. The way it's filmed, edited, and scored, leaves a giant question mark. And in TV, a question mark is never an accident. It's a clue. Asterisk, which brings us to the real mystery, the Easter egg. Because if you go back and watch carefully, there's one subtle detail almost everyone missed. And it could be the single biggest hint that Lamar isn't gone at all. Asterisk now. Let's talk about the part almost everyone missed, the Easter egg, because if you go back and rewatch that final scene with Lamar, there's a tiny detail in the background that changes the whole meaning of what we just saw. Asterisk. Here's the thing. Most people focused on Lamar himself, the fall, the blows, the way the camera cuts. But the real clue isn't in Lamar's body. It's in what happens around him. Right after the supposed ending, pay close attention to the background sound. You can hear faint sirens in the distance, slowly getting louder. That might seem normal for a Detroit street scene. Sirens are always there, right? But here's the difference. Those sirens start up only after Lamar goes down. It's like the world is reacting to him, not just to the fight. And if you've watched BMF carefully, you know that background details like that are never random. Asterisk, but that's not all. There's an even bigger clue in the dialogue just before the cutaway. One of the characters, not even in the center of the shot, mutters something under their breath. It's easy to miss unless you've got subtitles on. The line is quick, almost throwaway, but it's something along the lines of, "He's not done yet." Now, think about that. If this was meant to be the final closure for Lamar, why would the writers add a line like that? They could have easily written a simple confirmation, "He's dead." Instead, they planted doubt. Asterisk then, there's the wardrobe choice. Lamar is wearing a dark, heavy coat in that final moment. At first glance, it's nothing special. It's cold out, everyone's wearing coats. But if you look closer, the coat is almost identical to the one he wore back in season 2, during the scene where he was thought to be finished in the bathroom. That moment was one of the biggest fake-outs in the series. Fans thought it was over, but Lamar rose again. Could the writers be recycling that visual as a hidden signal? A way of saying, we've been here before, and you know how it ended last time. Even the lighting tells a story. Right before the cut, notice how the streetlights flicker. casting Lamar's face in shadow. The last image isn't one of finality, it's one of mystery. The show could have lit him clearly, giving us a definitive last look. Instead, they plunged him into half-darkness. Symbolically, that's powerful. It suggests uncertainty. It suggests we're not meant to see the full truth yet. Asterisk, and here's where it all comes together. Right after Lamar falls, as the sirens grow louder and the camera shifts, there's a flash of something in the corner of the screen. A pair of legs moving in the background. It's fast, almost unnoticeable, but they don't belong to any main character in the scene. Some fans online have speculated it could be a paramedic, or maybe even one of Lamar's associates watching from the shadows. Either way, it feels intentional. Why include that extra movement unless it's meant to hint at someone stepping in? Asterisk, this is the Easter egg the writers planted. It's subtle, it's easy to miss, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The sirens, the muttered line, the coat callback, the shadowed face, the background movement, all of it adds up to one message. Lamar's story may not be over. Asterisk, and let's be real. If the writers truly wanted us to believe Lamar is dead, they would have shown it plainly. They've done it before with other characters. But with Lamar, they chose mystery. They chose uncertainty. They chose to hide him in darkness instead of light. That's not just a creative choice. That's foreshadowing. So, the question becomes, why? Why leave us with this Easter egg if the story is done? The answer is simple. Because it's not done. Because Lamar's survival is the kind of twist that keeps fans on edge, debating, theorizing, waiting for more. And in a show like BMF, that kind of suspense is pure gold. The Easter egg isn't just a clever detail, it's a door left wide open. And fans have already started running through that door with theories about what it means. Because if Lamar isn't really gone, then Season 5 of BMF is about to get even more unpredictable. Asterisk, let's start with the most popular fan theory. Lamar survives, but he goes underground. According to this idea, the sirens we hear in the background aren't random. They belong to an ambulance that actually picks him up off the street. Instead of dying, Lamar is taken away quietly, hidden from the world. This would explain why the show cut away so quickly. They didn't want us to see what happened next. If that's true, it sets up a huge surprise return. With Lamar coming back in Season 5 more dangerous than ever, driven by revenge. Asterisk, another theory is darker. Lamar survives, but he isn't the same. This theory says the Easter egg isn't about survival in the traditional sense, but survival with consequences. The coat, the shadows, the muttered line, all of it hints that Lamar could come back physically weakened, maybe even mentally unstable, but still alive. And let's be honest, a broken Lamar might be even scarier than the Lamar we've known. Why? Because he would have nothing left to lose. He wouldn't be fighting for territory or power anymore. He'd be fighting out of pure spite. That kind of motivation can make a character unstoppable. Asterisk, then there's the symbolic reading, which is less about plot and more about theme. Some fans believe Lamar represents the chaos of the streets, the part of the game that Meech and Terry can never truly escape. If that's the case, then his death being left in darkness is a metaphor. The chaos isn't gone. It's only hidden. Even if Lamar himself doesn't come back, someone else will rise to take his place, carrying that same energy of unpredictability. The Easter egg, then, is less about Lamar the man, and more about Lamar the symbol. Asterisk, but here's where it gets even more interesting. Think about the timing. If Lamar really does survive, his return in Season 5 would come just as Meech and Terry are expanding further, reaching new levels of power. That's when they'd feel the most secure. And who better to crash that illusion of safety than the one man they thought was finally gone? Lamar returning at the height of their success would hit harder than if he showed up too soon. It would remind the audience and Meech and Terry that the past never really stays buried. Asterisk, the writers know this. They've used this kind of delayed payoff before. They like to plant seeds early and then let them grow in the background until the perfect moment. And that's exactly what this Easter egg feels like, a seed. If Lamar's story was finished, they would have closed the book with a clear ending. Instead, they left it cracked open. Just enough for us to wonder what's waiting on the next page. Asterisk, there's also the possibility of a psychological twist. Imagine if Lamar does survive, but instead of coming back as a physical threat, he comes back as a psychological one. He could haunt Meech and Terry not just with violence, but with paranoia. Every corner they turn, every deal they make, every moment of peace, they'd wonder if Lamar is watching. If done right, that could add a whole new layer of tension to the show. Because sometimes, the fear of a villain's return is even more powerful than the return itself. And let's not forget the fans themselves. BMF thrives on conversation, on people debating online about what's real and what's coming next. By leaving Lamar's fate uncertain, the writers have guaranteed that the buzz around Season 5 will be electric. Every teaser, every trailer, every new leak will be picked apart with one question in mind: is Lamar back? That kind of fan engagement is priceless. So what does all of this mean for the future of BMF? It means that whether Lamar is alive in the flesh or alive in spirit, his presence isn't done shaping this story. He's either coming back to settle the score himself, or he's being used as a symbol of the chaos that will always shadow Meech and Terry's empire. Either way, the Easter egg tells us one thing for sure: Lamar's story isn't over. Not yet, and that leaves us with the question you've been asking since the episode aired: did Lamar really die? Or is this just the beginning of his next chapter? The writers gave us clues, the fans built the theories, but the truth won't hit until Season 5. So, what do you think? Did Lamar survive? Or is BMF just playing the long game, keeping us guessing until the very last second? So here's where we're left. On the surface, Season 4, Episode 10 of BMF shows us what looks like Lamar's final moment. The confrontation, the fall, the silence, it all feels like the end. But when you really study the scene, when you break down the details, you realize the writers never gave us closure. Instead, they left an Easter egg, a trail of hints that point to something more. We saw the sirens. We heard the throwaway line. We noticed the coat callback, the flickering light, and that mysterious movement in the background. None of those details feel random. They feel deliberate. And together, they paint a picture that's hard to ignore. Lamar might not be gone at all. But even if Lamar really is dead, the way the writers handled his ending guarantees that his shadow will still hang over Season 5. Because Lamar isn't just a character, he's the embodiment of chaos. He's the reminder that in this world, the streets never let you rest, and no victory is ever final. Whether in flesh or in memory, Lamar's story will continue to shape Meech and Terry's future. And that's the brilliance of BMF. They didn't give us a clean answer. They gave us mystery. They gave us debate. They gave us a reason to keep watching, keep guessing, and keep talking until the next season drops. So now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Lamar actually survived? Did the writers hide a comeback in plain sight, or are we just holding on because we can't imagine BMF without him? Drop your theory in the comments below, and don't be afraid to go deep with your take. If you caught any other details in episode 10 that I didn't mention, share them. Let's see how many hidden clues this community can uncover together. And if you want more breakdowns, more Easter egg hunts, and more deep dives into BMF, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because one thing's for sure: whether Lamar lives or dies, his story isn't finished, and neither is ours.